Welcome back to another explainer. This one is brought to you by Forge College. So, in our last one, we tackled the question, what is ERC 1155, and got into the weeds with multi-token standards. But today, we're taking a pretty massive leap into system architecture. Our goal is actually really straightforward. We want to translate raw, wild Solana protocol data into clean, manageable, and highly predictable HTTP resources. So, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by blockchain data structures, well, this is exactly the explainer you've been waiting for. Okay, let's just quickly glance at our blueprint for today. We're going to start with taming the Solana ledger, then we'll look at REST principles for blockchain. After that, we'll dive into this really cool concept, the ledger as a library. Then we'll actually build an NFT indexer, and finally, we'll wrap up with our key takeaways. All right, let's jump right in.
Section 1. Teaming the ledger.
So the transition for Web 2 developers moving into Web 3, honestly, it can feel a bit like walking into a buzzsaw. One minute you're dealing with beautifully structured JSON endpoints, and the next, you're wrestling with raw binary data and completely unmanaged RPC endpoints. It is literally the digital equivalent of trying to read a book while someone is just aggressively flipping the pages back and forth. But here's the fix. By building a RESTful API layer, we essentially act as a translator. We filter all that chaotic, raw blockchain data into the pure Web 2 sanity of clean, standard JSON endpoints.
Moving on to Section 2. REST principles for blockchain.
What we're doing here is taking traditional web standards and slapping some heavy-duty off-road tires on them. Let's break this down a bit. For the uniform interface constraint, we use canonical URIs, meaning predictable paths that use base 58 or hex keys. Then there's statelessness. In this world, every single request has to carry its own context, like slot levels, which totally saves us from messy server-side sessions. For cacheability, we expose slot metadata and e-tags. Those are basically standard web identifiers for tracking data versions, so clients know exactly how fresh the data is. And finally, a layered system lets us cleanly separate our indexer from the proxy layers. Clear boundaries, happy developers.
But looking at all those constraints, a huge question inevitably pops up. How on earth do we handle caching and state on a live, constantly updating blockchain? Traditional databases update occasionally. Solana, it produces a brand new block every 400 milliseconds. How do you cache something that changes before you can even blink without accidentally serving painfully stale data to your users? It is definitely a unique Web3 challenge.
Which brings us to Section 3, the ledger as a library. To actually solve that caching problem, we need a complete paradigm shift. I want you to imagine the Solana ledger as a massive, constantly expanding library. The slots, or blocks, those are the books. The transactions are the pages within those books, and the accounts are the specific artifacts mentioned on those pages. It's an append-only library, meaning the librarian is always adding new books, but, and this is crucial, they are absolutely never burning the old ones. So, keeping with this library vibe, a GET request is simply the borrower. That's your client application, checking the catalog to read stable representations of a book or a page. You're basically just asking, hey, what are the exact details associated with this specific identifier? It's strictly a read-only query. You aren't changing the library in any way. You're just looking at a snapshot of a specific artifact at a very specific point in time. Conversely, a post request is you walking up and handing the librarian a brand new page, asking them to append it to the library's official records. You're submitting a signed transaction to actually change the state of the network. This strict, uncompromising separation between reading the catalog, the GET request, and submitting a new page, the POST request, is literally the foundation of a clean REST architecture. You never ever mix read-heavy queries with state-changing operations on the exact same endpoint. All right, let's get into Section 4, building an NFT indexer. Now, theory is great and all, but we definitely prefer to build things. So let's actually prototype a read request for an NFT marketplace. Check out how we structure this GET request to /accounts, /pubkey, /NFTs. See, this is a canonical, highly predictable URL. We aren't using some messy, verb-heavy URL like get account NFT data. We are identifying the resource itself. It's super clean, and honestly, your front-end developers will absolutely thank you for it. When that GET request comes back, it delivers this perfectly structured JSON payload. It's got the mint and owner, which are our canonical base 58 identifiers. It includes the URI for off-chain metadata, but I want you to pay special attention to these last two items here, on-chain slot and schema version. The on-chain slot acts as our staleness tracker. It tells the client exactly when the snapshot was taken on the blockchain. And the schema version? That ensures that if we update our API down the road, we don't accidentally break older legacy clients. This right here is exactly how you build for rock-solid stability.
But hey, what happens when a user has like 1,000 NFTs? You obviously can't send them all at once. For listing endpoints, like fetching items in a collection, you absolutely need clean pagination. Here we use /collections /collection ID /NFTs /limit equals 50 and after equals cursor. And the brilliant part of this is that cursor. It should always be an opaque base64 string. By keeping that cursor opaque, your front-end clients aren't strictly coupled to whatever internal indexing logic you're using. You could completely swap out your database backend tomorrow, and the client application wouldn't even flinch. Okay, let's shift back to the right path. Say the user wants to actually buy an NFT. They need to submit a transaction. Remember our library metaphor from earlier? Well, this is the moment the client hands the librarian a new page. We use a nice, clean post request to /transactions.
The post payload itself is a beautifully compact submission contract. You just send a JSON object with the transaction as a base64 serialized string, and maybe an optional Boolean flag called simulate_only. And that's it. It completely shields the front end from leaking any of those raw RPC semantics. The client app doesn't need to know how to talk to a Solana node directly at all. It just talks to your standard REST API.
And the response from that post request is just as critical. It returns structured confirmation metadata. You get a status of accepted, the transaction signature hash, the expected confirmations, and the commitment level. This response is vital, guys, because it tells the client application exactly what to expect from the network next. They can confidently display a processing screen to the user, all because your REST API provided clear, actionable metadata.
Finally, Section 5. Our key takeaways. So we've basically translated the Wild West of blockchain data into civilized, predictable web resources. And it all comes down to these 3 golden rules. Number 1, always treat Solana identifiers as canonical resource keys. Number 2, strictly separate your read-only catalog queries from your state-changing write commands. And number 3, always include explicit slot metadata and schema versions. If you follow these, your endpoints are going to be incredibly robust and super client-friendly. Ultimately, building clean interfaces is the true catalyst that's going to accelerate mass Web3 adoption. When we make blockchain data as easy to consume as a traditional Web2 database, we just open the floodgates for millions of developers. I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to continue learning and diving deeper into this stuff. But I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Now that you know how to tame the ledger and serve it as clean, RESTful APIs, what massive, complex Web3 application are you going to simplify next? Thanks for tuning into this explainer from Forge College, and we will see you in the next one.